Okay, now that we're all together, it's the 15th, we've got 5 days to look. We've got 2 ships that Franklin lost that we know, are somewhere here in the vicinity of King William Island and the Adelaide Peninsula. We have a target potentially, I guess, to the north here, and we've got another potential target to the south. There's only so much time we can spend running this, so I think we're gonna have to be pretty clear. George, you've done most of the research on the northern stuff. What's your sense of our viability here?
There are stories of a ship being offshore Erebus Bay from local people, and from people that in the early 30s heard stories that there was a ship offshore there. So there's various pieces of information around that say that we should be looking in there. I'd love to get up in there, but a couple of days ago when I flew over right north of the Royal Geographic Society Islands, it was blocked in completely with ice, and it just looked as though there was no way that we were going to get something in towing a sonar fish, or even if with the sonar on the hull, it would just be torn off in that ice. But because the ice comes down there, I don't know whether that's even going to open up this year, but somewhere up in here, I think there's one of the ships.
Okay. Captain Mellis, you're the man with the experience here with the ice.
Basically, we've got ice just north of where George is proposing a search, but we've got westerlies, and there has been northwesterly winds. So I think if we run up there, we take a good possible chance that we may accomplish nothing. That's a risk you may not want to take, because it's quite a diversion. So my bet is that if you stayed in open water, you're going to get a search. If we go up there, you may not get one.
We could lose up to 3 days steaming time and survey time?
That's right.
Okay. Well, then maybe we need to look at the southerly target. Dave, you've been analyzing all the Inuit accounts, and you've been here before looking. What's your sense?
Well, as George says, the Inuit talked about 2 separate sinkings in quite disparate locations. And I've always focused on the southerly one as the most likely one to find, basically because we have a slightly better geographical clues. Hall heard that the ship had sunk in Utjulik, which is the land of bearded seals, which is essentially the term used for the whole west coast of Adelaide Peninsula. And he also heard that it sank near O'Reilly Islet, and gave us a latitude and longitude of 6830 north and 99 west, which is 2 rounded off to be taken literally, but gives us an indication. Problem is that the latitude and longitude don't tie into O'Reilly Islet. And then 10 years later, Schwatka interviewed a boy, well, he had been a boy and now an older man, who claimed to have stood on the deck of the ship before it sank. And he gave the best description of how to get to it. He said if you go to Two Fingers, which was the Inuit name for Grant and Smith Points, and you walk 4 miles to the west of Grant Point, you'll find an island, which is pretty well certain since the whole area west of Grant Point is full of islands. He also said that to get to the ship you had to walk 3 miles on first year ice, and it depends on whether you read those 2 statements as being separated by a comma or a period. If you separate them by a comma, it means that you walk to the island and a further 3 miles to the west, and that would put the wreck out here somewhere. If you separate them by a period, you say that he's just telling us the ship is near an island which is 4 miles to the west of Grant Point, and that you have to walk 3 miles out from either that island or Grant Point, which is my preferred reading. In 1992, we did, with the Canadian military, a magnetometer airborne survey of the whole area to try and locate the ships based on the iron in their engines. We came up with 62 targets, unfortunately, but by breaking them down into priorities, we came up with 5 in what I consider to be a good search area. And then in 1997, Canadian Coast Guard ship the Laurier and 2 launches, survey launches from hydrographic, came up and did this area here.
That was the Econova expedition?
The Econova expedition of 97. And now I've drawn out boxes based on the same testimony that actually worked their way closer into Grant Point, with the highest priority box essentially being the intersection of 3 mile arc from almost any piece of land, and on the assumption that in the Arctic it's very easy to overestimate distance rather than underestimate distance, and that the ships might actually lie closer than 3 miles to land, so we're walking closer in with boxes A, B, C. This area is almost always open this time of year, and we've confirmed that it's open this year too. And so, in my humble and biased opinion, this gives us a good chance of conducting a survey.
Right, and I think that an Adon can get in there. We're only drawing a little over a meter, and with Bob's equipment on board, we can probably plot out the depths fairly carefully. I don't see a real chore there, as long as we're going slow. How's it look for the lines?
I think we can keep getting a 400-meter swath at up to 5 knots. So we should be able to space the lines maybe 200 meters.
So then, Dave, just covering your Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie boxes, what are you looking at in terms of hours here?
Alpha at 5 knots, Alpha will work out to about 48 hours of search. Bravo is about 22 and Charlie's about 18. So we can't work 24 hours a day, and it's all weather dependent. I would expect that our 5 days will probably be used up almost entirely just doing those 3 boxes.